Hey everyone, it's Mike Shaw with Planet for Photographers, and in this video, I'm going to show you how to set custom camera and scene heights for your planning. Why might you want to do this? Well, the default value that you set up initially for your camera height is typically 5 feet, which corresponds to a pretty standard tripod height or roughly eye level for a lot of people. But there are two specific cases where you're going to want to set a custom height that's different than this, in fact, very different. The first one is when you're doing aerial photography, like with a drone. The second is when you're making your images from the rooftop of a high-rise building or some other elevated vantage point. So first, I'm going to show you how to set a custom camera height, and then we'll move on to setting custom scene heights. Now to begin with, there's two ways to set a custom camera height. The first is to go up here to the menu, and then select settings down here like this. And then you scroll down, and under the elevation, right here, you can see that there is a camera height above the ground setting right here. Now, frankly, I don't use this method anymore really because I often forget to change it back when I'm done. Rather, I just keep this set to the default 5-foot value, and again, your height might be a little bit different. But we certainly do have the option of setting the camera height here to something like 1,200 or 1,500 feet like this. And then at all times, your camera on the map will have this height. So for example, if we're doing aerial photography, such as with a drone, we can set the camera height to 1,500 feet right here, if that's the altitude of the drone. So that's one way. Well, let's set it back to 5 feet before I forget. Okay, the second way is to use a marker for your camera location with a predefined height for the marker. This can then be used for either photographing from a rooftop or for drone route planning. So to do this, first add a marker at the place where there's a tall building or some other object where you want to set up your camera, for example, right just here. Tap the plus button, add a marker like this. Now in the pop-up window, be sure to choose an icon under the travel category. Any one would work. For example, let's use this first one with binoculars. Now that you've done that, you can see up here the label is Overlook with a Scenic View. I often use this icon to indicate the camera location. Now note that there's a field over here on the right which is called the camera height above the ground. This is where you set your custom height for your marker. Let's set it here to 1,200 feet, for example. Now if you place the camera pin at this marker, your camera automatically gets the marker height of 1,200 feet. Boom. All right, so that's how you do that. And let me zoom in to show you the other advantage of this method, which is you can set the marker to have a specific width as well as a custom height. Why would you want to do that? Well, let's suppose that there's a 30-foot diameter area on the rooftop where you can freely move around and set up your camera. You can assign this area to the marker, so you're then free to set up the camera anywhere within it, and it'll keep that custom height. Here's how to do this. Tap on this Edit button, and right here you can set the width of the marker to 30 feet like this. Confirm it by tapping on the check mark up here. Alright, and so now when we zoom in, you'll see a circle with a 30-foot diameter representing the marker, again with that custom height. And anytime the camera pins within this circle, the camera will be assigned a custom height of 1,200 feet. But if you drag the pin outside the circle like this, then it won't have the 1,200 foot height, but rather the default height of 5 feet. And you don't need to set the camera pin exactly at the center of the circle. Really, anywhere within it will keep that 1,200 foot custom height. So this is your preferred way of setting the camera height. You can use this method to keep track of all the camera locations on the rooftop, and after entering the camera height for each marker, you don't need to remember them anymore. And there's no need to change the default camera height in the settings as in the first method. The camera height will be updated automatically every time you place the camera within the marker. How great is that? Alright, so that's about it for the camera height. Now let's talk about the scene height. Let's say that there's a tall building over here, and we add a marker to indicate it like this. Now in the menu that pops up, we usually label it with an icon under the building category like this. And then we assign a height to the building, for example, 1,500 feet like this. Now, if you're like me, you would probably assume that this 1,500 foot height represents the scene height, And if I set the scene pin to this marker like this, the scene height would automatically be set to a height of 1,500 feet. Unfortunately, that actually isn't the case, as we can check by using this elevation gain feature under the distance tool. Note here, the camera height is way up here, which we set earlier, but the scene pin is still at the ground level. And here's why. Planit doesn't yet know exactly what the scene is, even though you set the scene pin at the building marker. In other words, Planit doesn't know if you want to shoot the building's top, its middle, its bottom, all are possible scenes, especially with a long telephoto lens. All it knows is that there's an object with whatever height you specified at that location. So what do? Easy. We set a custom subject height, where the subject is what you select as your primary target of your scene. All you have to do to set the subject height is to swipe down to get the ephemeris page, like this, and then you select the light and shadow tool right down here. Now you can see the entry point for your subject height right up here. Clever, hmm? Alright, so let's assign a custom height of 1,500 feet. And now when you check the chart, it makes sense. The camera height is here and your subject height is here, which is different than before when the scene height was basically at ground level. Alright, so those are the ways to set a custom camera height and scene or subject height. Until next time, this is Mike Shaw saying thanks for watching and best of luck planning with Planit.